Hey, Corey Kaiser here with Realty One Group Next Level. This is a video for the buyers to help you understand the new changes that are happening in the real estate industry and specifically in New Hampshire. But back in April, the NAR, which is the National Association of Realtors, was sued, settling March 15th, I believe it was. And as a result of that settlement, there's two big changes that are being implemented nationwide beginning August 17th. However, New Hampshire got ahead of the game and implemented these changes on July 15th. And one of these changes is written buyer agreements. Before, in New Hampshire specifically, we were able to just go show a home to a buyer without any agreement, anything written up. We could just go show you the property, and then if we wanted to do an agreement later on, like when you wrote an offer, what have you, we could do it after the fact. But now we have to do it before. As of July 15th, we are no longer able to show homes to buyers without a written buyer agreement. Now, there's three options that the buyer has in regard to the type of agreement they can sign. The first one is your exclusive buyer agency agreement. For us, we're a designated agency, so that's why it says that. With the exclusive buyer agency agreement, you are hiring that agent and that agent alone to represent you in that transaction, which then means we also owe you fiduciary duties. This means that buyer will be appointed a specific agent, designated agency, who will represent buyer in this transaction and who will owe buyer the fiduciary duties of loyalty, obedience, disclosure, confidentiality, reasonable care, diligence, and accounting. So that's what the fiduciary duties are. Non-exclusive buyer representation agreement. Same as exclusive, we still owe you fiduciary duties, except in this agreement, you're allowed to work with other agents simultaneously. You're not locked into that one agent. The third option is buyer facilitator relationship agreement. In this agreement, the firm is not acting as an agent of the buyer and does not owe fiduciary duties, including confidentiality, to the buyer. So exclusive buyer agency agreement, non-exclusive buyer representation agreement, and then you have your buyer facilitator relationship agreement. Those are the three options you have. Now, if you don't want to sign any of these, then you're not going to be able to see a house. But there are two exceptions. Listing agents don't have to sign one of these to show their own listing with the buyer. And number two, you don't have to sign one of these going to an open house. So those are the two exceptions. But other than that, if you don't sign one of these, an agent cannot show you a home. And if an agent is showing you a home and didn't present you with some sort of agreement, they're putting their license at risk. And that's on them. But those are the three agreements. The other change that came out of the settlement was the decoupling of commissions, and I'll explain that real quick. The second half of this, I wrote it out for you. This means that the buyer's agent commission and the seller's agent commission are negotiated and agreed upon separately, rather than being tied together as a single commission by the seller. So the selling agent and the seller are going to negotiate a fee, and the buyer agent are going to negotiate their own fee. Before, what was happening was the listing agent would negotiate a fee with the seller, and then a portion of that would go to the buyer agent. For example, 3 to the seller agent, and then 2 to the buyer agent. And as you can see here in this example of an old listing that I sold back in February of 2022, as you can see here in the listing, it's offering compensation 2% for buyer agency and 2% for facilitator. But now an additional change is that it doesn't offer the MLS. You can't offer compensation in the MLS anymore because you have to negotiate those separately. Now that this is gone and we have to do agreements before we show homes, it's forcing the agent and the buyer to negotiate and agree on a fee before showing a home, because that seller may not be offering a fee to the buyer agent. So you as a buyer have to understand that you can be responsible for that fee. Now, if it says 3% in here and the seller's offering 3%, we can't double dip. I can't get 3 from the seller and 3 from you. And I can't get more than what's agreed upon in the agreement. So if the seller agent or the seller's offering a percentage or a fee, then that will be written into the offer or as a concession, and then it'll be paid by the seller and won't be owed by you. So I hope that makes sense. That's the decoupling of commissions. And if you have any more questions, I'll leave my contact info in the video description or whatever, and you can reach out and we can chat about it. Other than that, take it easy.